welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We are so happy to be here with you. We're happy that you're here with us and that we are together. We are excited about the topic for this evening. And so we want to welcome you. I saw some in the chat were already putting where they were from. So please put where you are watching from. I saw one from Los Angeles, California. And so welcome, welcome, welcome. Please let us know where the rest of you are viewing from. Welcome to my co-host, Dr. Ricardo Whyte. It's good to be back here with you.
Same here, sis.
Yes, Mondays aren't the same unless we are doing Mental Health Mondays.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yes.
Am I popping?
You're not popping. So we're going to pray. You're not going to pop. Yes, we want to. Oh, so we have Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome. Lynn from Atlanta. Sharon from Greenville, Mississippi. Annette from Washington State.
We got Portland, Oregon, Idaho, Grace in Idaho, I guess. Longview, Texas. Greenville, Missouri, I presume. The Delta area. Okay. Okay.
Yes, nice. Another Crystal. Hi, Crystal from Spokane, Washington. Great to see you on here. Yes, so we are excited about today's topic because this is December 5th. And so we are full swing in the holiday seasons, full swing. I mean, they were playing Christmas songs before Thanksgiving happened. So, I mean, well, the stores were.
Yeah.
But
Well,
now, yeah, everyone is like on that mission. They have 20 days until Christmas. And so, what can happen a lot of times during this time of year is people can get stressed out.
people can get stressed out. We are emerging from the pandemic, and
Yes.
I don't know about you, but there's a pandemic of fatigue. Okay, as we emerge from
Yes.
the pandemic of COVID, I
Mm.
think a lot of us are experiencing the resulting pandemic of massive fatigue,
Hmm.
and more so than just even physical fatigue, emotional fatigue.
Right.
Um, we're tired,
Just tired.
and so now, and for a lot of people, the holiday seasons can be incredibly demanding. So I think a lot of
Yes.
people are asking, what can I do? How can I preserve some energy so that I don't get steamrolled by these holidays?
Right.
So we're going to go through 5 tips to help you manage your holiday stress.
Yeah, and before we jump into that, which I'm excited, we're going to jump into that and hopefully be able to help so many during this time. A lot of things that I hear around the holiday time as well is those who are grieving and just don't have those loved ones with them anymore. And, just the holidays are hard because it reminds them of that special time that they used to have with their loved ones. So depression can happen during this time, on top of being stressed and trying to go through the motions of doing everything that you're supposed to be doing to celebrate this time of year.
Well, talk about emotional depletion, but
Hmm.
that's definitely one of the things that goes with depression is a sort of emotional exhaustion.
Yeah.
Um, we talk about psychomotor retardation. We talk about not feeling like you want to do anything,
Right.
type of depression that's associated with leaden paralysis. The
Mm.
limbs just don't feel like they can move, or they feel super heavy.
Mm.
So this issue of energy it's a huge topic. Absolutely.
Yes, it's
Uh,
huge. Okay, and just to remind you guys, we're taking your comments and questions. So please, as we are going through these steps and as we're commenting, you can also ask questions and we will do our best to answer them. So, yeah.
absolutely.
So, tip number one. Tip number one.
Yeah. Tip number one: be realistic,
Yes.
and yeah, be realistic, and state. Yeah, I mean, I may as well. Yeah. So tip number one is be realistic. So a lot of times we can be super impractical, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
about what we're gonna do.
Mm.
And sometimes with a holiday season, like we might overwhelm ourselves a given holiday season and then presume that, okay, well, now that's the tradition. Now we always have to do that.
Right.
And it is so critical to recognize that no, your biggest weapon in, creating more energy is planning.
Mm.
You get
Mhm.
to plan and be realistic and say, you know what? That was super exhausting last time. It was kind of cool, but it was very exhausting. And we're not going to do that this time.
Right.
And we're going to know that ahead of time. And this is one of the ways that you can protect yourself. It's okay to be realistic and to be aware of how you were impacted by maybe the hustle and the bustle, and maybe decide to do something different. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts, sis?
Well, I was going to say just, try to dial it back some because when you're not realistic and you're doing too much, then you don't really get to enjoy that time with your family and what the holidays are supposed to be all about. And so, yeah, being realistic, not overshooting for what you have to, what you're trying to do, and just not living up to other people's what they want you to do, but being realistic for yourself. And I have to say, sometimes when you have a big family and you have kids and they're expecting certain things, or maybe even your spouse is expecting certain things, sometimes it's hard to do that, to bring that balance.
Absolutely. That's why they're going to need to stick around for some of these tips, because we're going to talk to them about what are some of the ways you can
Can do that.
absolutely do that. But we'll start with that big umbrella of, hey, it's okay to be realistic. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to acknowledge that you have limitations. And it's better for you to acknowledge that versus the situation just kind of bringing you to that point, and maybe you become overwhelmed or you snap at someone,
Mm-hmm.
rather than as who was it? I think it was, let's see if I can even find the comment, but where the gentleman said preemption. Was
Mm.
that Clint? I think it was Clint who mentioned, yeah, it's important to be preemptive. So
Right.
that's our biggest weapon with time management. It's planning and it's being preemptive. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
you can get outcomes that you actually value. As always, we're not necessarily your mental health practitioners, so whatever decisions you make them in the context of working with your mental health team. But as an overarching guide, yeah, planning is important. That certainly is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even jumped into the steps, but there is a question up there. It says, "What about what about family clashes?" Meaning, I'm assuming this is what you're asking, Jamie. Like, just like maybe your husband's side does it different, and your side does it different, celebrates differently. I'm assuming maybe, and that causes you some stress and unhappiness.
Well, this comes down to communication.
Mm-hmm.
Have we done one on communication yet?
You know what? We haven't. We
Yeah,
haven't.
I think we I
That's
think we
we
should
need
do
to
one
do
on communication. Yeah,
communication. Hmm.
let's do one on communication. But
Yes.
yeah, this one comes down to communication, and communication, of course, is so critical. But
Hmm.
um, Jamie, I love what you're kind of bringing us to, and that is, if it's important to plan the talk and to talk beforehand, how much better is it to do that versus the talk just being dumped on you?
Right.
Because if you plan the discussion, if you agree to the discussion, then some of the things that you can do is you can say, okay, well, let's make sure that everyone's eaten, nobody's tired, and we're not stressed. Let's plan this discussion, as opposed to the discussion occurring spontaneously when a person might be tired, angry, tense, worried, bothered, blah, 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 and the list can go on. So just taking the time just taking the time to actually plan it, then design the communication is awesome. And I just saw
Yeah.
Nurse Florence in the chat say, would love a communication discussion. Well, if Nurse Florence wants that, that's what Nurse Florence is going to get.
Is that your Florence?
That is my Florence.
That's what I thought.
It's my Florence.
We should
So
have our
yeah.
spouses. We should have our spouses come on and we do that communication
Oh,
one
that would
together.
be so cool. That would
That
be
would be
so
cool.
cool.
Ivor and I have done. I've done a a marriage seminar a few years ago before the pandemic, and I brought him on stage, and we like let out in something, and it was a real thing too. I was like, it's okay, don't be nervous.
That would be so fun. That'd be
It
so
would
fun.
be. So yes,
Yeah.
Nurse Florence, we're inviting you to join us.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That'd be fun. And Florence is awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
she is. She's
yeah, she's
amazing.
awesome. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, so you plan the communication, and then mental note. Sis and I were going to plan a communication, and we might even have some special guests because
Yes.
to have the pastor show up, boy, would that be fun. Um, well, the next thing is tip number two. Okay,
Mhm.
so the tip number two is setting a budget. Setting a
Mm.
budget.
Yes.
So if not careful, we can obviously overspend,
Oh,
and
easy.
we can obviously overspend, and
Mhm.
and it can be so stressful when you get that bill. It can be
Mhm.
so incredibly stressful. So setting a budget and determining, okay, who's buying a gift and how much are we going to spend,
Mhm.
and why are we doing this? What is the purpose? What is the goal? And so
Mhm.
getting clear on those things, and then saying, okay, well, and how much money do we have?
Right.
It can be super, super important.
Mhm.
We're at the end of the year. So now is a good time to start thinking about planning the subsequent year.
Right.
Good planners probably started even earlier than this. But I got
Mhm.
this wonderful, counsel from someone who mentioned it is so wise to plan your vacations. Like you put that the first part. That's the first thing you do in your calendar is you put your vacations.
For the year.
And yeah, for the year,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
plan that first thing, and then
Mhm.
you plan your life kind of around that.
Mhm.
But now you start saying, well, if we're going to be doing these things, well, from a financial standpoint, what should be some of our limits, or blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So what you can see is, as you take the time to think through what you want your outcomes to be, you're actually going to be happier with your actions.
Right.
So if you know what your goals are from a travel standpoint or from a vacation standpoint, then you're going to say, okay, well, this is the budget that we need to set.
Mhm.
So it can be really awesome to make sure that you do that.
Mhm. And I think that that is probably the biggest stress of the holidays is just spending too much money, right? So if you can set that budget and set that boundary and stick to that, then the holidays shouldn't be that stressful, because you know what you're going to spend, you know what you have, and you're not overextending yourself, and you're setting those boundaries. Um, my kids, I'll just have a little self disclosure here. They call me the Christmas Scrooge. And it's not because they don't get gifts and like all of that kind of stuff, or throughout their childhood. They're not little children anymore, but they still
I,
get
I,
gifts.
I I don't know, sis. The cat doesn't like you. The kids call you Scrooge. I'm really getting worried here.
Oh no, I know. No, the reason is because well, I'll just be honest. They see all the neighborhood, the houses in all the neighborhoods are like they're decorated to
Max.
just the max. And I'm like, guys, that's a lot of money that people spend on all of those. I'm not, it's like, we have decorations, but they're like
Right,
tamed down. Cause
right,
I'm like,
right,
when you want me to put money into a gift for you versus putting all this money for like everyone to just see our house look so pretty for like 20 days.
mhm,
I don't know,
right,
or
right.
30 days. And so yeah, that was like my thought process. So they don't really expect much from me when it comes to decorations, but they
Uh-huh.
do get the gifts that they want
There it is.
if it's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Let me
that's
see. December. Let me see. Deborah said December is the only month I do not stick to a budget because it's my birth month and Christmas. Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing?
if
So,
it doesn't stress you out, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Meaning like you set a budget. If Christmas or holidays stress you out and you're not taking note of that and making changes so that it won't stress you out because of money, then it can be a negative thing. But if you're spending all this money and it doesn't negatively affect you, like in January, you're not like so depressed because you spent so much money in December, then I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing for you.
I
That's my response.
I can't say for sure, sis, but you tell me if you've heard this. Did you hear that there was an increase in the rate of domestic violence, like around like February, like in like around the first quarter of the year? Have you heard anything like that?
I think I have heard that. I don't know the
The,
hard statistics, but I have
yeah,
heard something like that. Yeah.
and obviously I can't. I'm not equipped to say link it to holidays or anything like that, but like
Hmm.
you can't help but wonder what that's really connected to. Um,
Right.
the bottom line is finances can be a big stressor, and obviously the mismanagement of finances can obviously be a really big stressor on relationships and on people.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is, Deborah, happy, you know, happy birthday to you in advance, and
Right.
I,
This
I
is your
hope
month.
you, yeah, happy birth month. My wife definitely celebrates for a month, so I don't know if you follow that
Me
custom as
too. Me
well.
too.
You follow for a month as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Because my birthday is March 31st. We're going all the way through April till the
There it is. There it is. And probably your home is similar to mine in terms of I only get a day though. Pastor only gets a day though, right? That's
because that's
yeah, that sounds about right.
this year he got 2 weeks though because it was the 50th. So he couldn't complain this year, but
And
normally he
and
gets a day.
and and, and you'll probably get a decade for your 50th.
Yeah. Pray for him. He has I'm pray for him as he thinks about my 50th. He has like a year and a half, so pray about that for him.
Oh man, I definitely got to pray for him because it's gonna be hard to top what you did. But the idea being finances are real. Like when you talk
Yes.
about relationships falling apart, uh, you know, finances can often be a stressor that really can hurt a relationship. So again, I hope you're hearing the overarching theme of the power of planning,
Yes.
sitting down and understanding what's important to you and then planning accordingly. All right, we
Hmm.
have a comment by Gregory Hall. What if you're a seasonal worker and it's hard to budget in the Christmas time? Is it okay to not buy presents? Is it okay to not buy presents? I think the whole commercial world is like listening in right now. And so, yeah, obviously, our goal is not to disrupt any economies or what have
Right.
you. But the idea being, you really and truly need to take a look at your household and
Right.
what's right for your household,
Yeah.
minus the pressure of the external world.
Right.
You like it's really important to take a look at what's right for me,
Hmm.
what's right for my household, and I'm responsible to not subject myself to burdens and stresses that may undo me trying
Hmm.
to do things that I don't necessarily have to do.
Right.
So that's how I would answer that question. I think it's
Hmm.
really taking stock of your situation and what's right for you, is how I
Hmm.
would say that. What would you say,
What's
sis?
I would say the same thing. And what's so important about the most important thing about the holidays is just spending time with your family and being there with your family and friends and those that you care about. And if finances are an issue, then absolutely no, you don't have to buy presents. And I mean, you don't have to buy presents anyways. I mean, this is not a, yeah, you don't have to buy presents. But if finances are an issue, no, you could always come up with something creative with your friends and family that is something meaningful to you, to them. And that could be your Christmas experience with them that, it takes the place of actually buying presents because there's just not the money for that, but it's still something very special. So you can create your own tradition that is okay for you and doesn't stress you out and makes you and your family happy.
Right. And Clint just commented, I've heard suicide rates rise around this time of year. And I think that's a wonderful dovetail to tip number 3, which
Hmm.
is acknowledge your feelings.
Right.
Apparently, there there is some data that there can be some increased depression during the holidays. So there are two factors that one can consider. First of all, there's a condition called seasonal affect disorder. So
Mm.
that during this period of the year, just from a seasonal standpoint, there are people who at times get depressive symptoms. And then there are those who the season leads them to get depressed. So obviously, the season can be associated with expectations that you're going to be with loved ones. And when people experience the loneliness that can occur from at the same time as the season, they can then feel sad that they're alone while they're watching others be with their loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with COVID, there was a lot of loss of life, and so
There
some
was.
people they're experiencing these holidays maybe for the first time without that loved one, so
Mm-hmm.
that it can be a challenge in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what I often will tell my patients as they're dealing with is loss is a very important reminder for us to value our memories and
Mm-hmm.
value the privilege that we have to create experiences with loved ones, because those experiences we have with us as long as we're alive. We have it almost eternally, and it's in that sense that the person's memory can be with us, and memories are precious. Memories are absolutely precious. So the idea being, um, it's critical to not focus as much on the loss as it is
Right.
to focus on the opportunity you have to create memories with those people that are still alive,
Yes.
or sometimes the opportunities that are
Mm-hmm.
there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
shifting to, hey, what can I still be grateful for?
Right.
Sometimes, for example, the temptation is, well, I've lost 5 people, and as tragic as that is, and my goodness, sincere condolences, because you might look at the time and say, look at these people I've lost. If you're very careful and you scrutinize that time period, you'll also see there were some gains that
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I'm not saying will equate to it, but you'll see that life is characterized by a give and a take. Give and a
Mm-hmm.
take. It's just you have to be really attentive to it. But don't forget the precious privilege we have of creating values, of
Right.
creating memories. Sis, what were your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I agree that this can definitely be a very difficult time for, and I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the program, for many because they have lost loved ones. I mean, I was one of those who lost my father during COVID. My father didn't have COVID, but because it was during COVID, I wasn't able to
Sincere
go.
condolences, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. I wasn't able to go see him in the hospital. And so he basically died alone. So, I mean, and just to think about this time of year, my dad was actually not big on Christmas. I mean, we were always together. Maybe that's where I get it from. But my mom is bigger on Christmas. My dad was never huge on Christmas, but we still were always together as a family. So just to not have him at this time of year, or um, just not to be able to call him and those type of things. I mean, I understand. I have empathy for those who are experiencing those emotions during this time, because it is difficult. I think somebody put in the chat that veterans commit suicide. The increase of suicide in veterans increases during this time of year as well. So this is definitely, uh, you know, definitely a real thing that happens. But then I like what Dr. Whyte was saying, just to think about all the things that you can be thankful for, and for those that are still here with you, because I definitely covet the time with our kids and with our family members during this time now that are alive, because I just want to make those memories. the last 2 weeks we were traveling all over the place with our kids and to my mom's and to California, but we were creating memories, and it wasn't always easy because there were so many of us trying to get around all these different places, but to celebrate this holiday time. But we were spending that time together, and we'll
And
look back at that and think about the experiences that we had. Go ahead.
well, and it's interesting because while you mentioned that, hey, you know what, my dad did pass at this time. You have also now become a grandmother, isn't that right?
Yes, and my
And
grandbaby was with me last week too when we were
right.
doing Thanksgiving. Yeah.
And so you see that give and take, you see
Yeah.
that give and take, and that there have probably been some other babies that have been born, and there were other people. So the idea just being, it is so important to look for that balance,
Mhm.
and make sure that while you honor the memory that you've created with that. Like,
Right.
it's awesome that you guys created that, to also
Yeah.
balance it with, and what I'm not going to do is, I'm not going to let this morning distract me from the gift of the people around me, like the
Mhm.
richness that I have. I'm married, I've got wonderful children, I've got, a profession, I've got people that love me.
Mhm.
um I think it's balancing our thoughts,
Mhm.
and that's an important part of tip number 3: acknowledging the feelings and balancing our reflections.
Mhm.
um but
Yeah.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
no, there was a comment or a question, actually. I think it was up there, but it said, "Is it wrong that I'm not excited about Christmas?" And I think I turned it into my own.
Is
Oh,
it
is it there it
strange
is.
not
To
to be
be to not be
crazy?
crazy about Christmas. And
No.
for me, no, no, it's not strange at all.
Sister Atonte, I think under your caption it reads "Bah humbug." I'm joking. But no, I mean, it's really different strokes for different folks.
Right.
There might be another holiday that the same person who's not crazy about Christmas, there might be another holiday that you absolutely love.
Right.
One of the beauties about us as humans is the diversity of
Mhm.
interests, the diversity of
Mhm.
personalities, and what one person doesn't like, another person loves, and vice versa. And
Mhm.
we're entitled to that.
Yeah, and
So
I always encourage people to be creative too. Instead of just like, if you don't like the traditional, Christmas that's out there, turn it into something that you do enjoy. Let that become a time where you're doing self-care for yourself, and you could also be spending time with family as well, but just turn it into something that you enjoy, you love. I mean, this is the time of year that people are taking off work. They're able to be able to do things to celebrate this time, but do it your way, which makes you happy. Don't feel
yeah.
like you have to be in a box and do it the way what everybody else does.
Brent apparently wanted to nickname you Ebenezer Myers. It's- it's- but yeah, it's like
Oh, that's
sometimes
funny.
we forget that we can design our traditions. We can
Right.
design traditions and build them to our specifications. So
Right.
yeah, it's absolutely wise to take that liberty in these important times.
Yes.
But definitely acknowledge your feelings,
Mhm.
and it's important to acknowledge that, hey, sometimes if the feelings dip, hey, acknowledge that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. That'll take us to tip number 4, and tip number 4 is to set boundaries.
Mhm.
I think this is a good place to mention that at Killing Burnout, we did create a nice tip sheet for you where you can download this stuff. So it'll be a cool
Mhm.
pop up, and of course you can pass it on to others as well. But
Mhm. Do you want to give them?
killingburnout.com.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you want to give them that website? Okay. Yeah, that's good.
And
Killingburnout.com.
yeah, and um, uh, uh, we can have it put in the chat. But yeah, so we are at tip number 4: set boundaries. I'm gonna give you a juicy one here. Juicy
Okay.
one. So we all at some point have to say no, and wouldn't it be nice to say no in a way that people can actually, tolerate and be happy with your no. And so
Mhm.
there's what I call the beautiful no. There's what's called the beautiful no. And if I'm not mistaken, I did get this from I've heard this term, the beautiful no, from a book. But I'm using it in my own way.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the beautiful no. So basically, what the beautiful no has to do. So of course, let me paint the picture.
Mhm.
Um, as you can see, it's all about planning, and setting boundaries is putting in place the guards, the safety guards around what's important.
Mhm.
um, and when things are important, what you'll see is they're guarded, and that's true for your time, that's true for your resources. And part of how you guard things is you set boundaries. What this looks like from a psychological standpoint is there are times that you need to say no.
Right.
And but nobody really likes, a lot of times people don't like to say no. Presuming you are the majority of the population, it probably doesn't feel good to say no. And and there's many reasons why, but we don't like disappointing people. A lot of times we don't like to disappoint a person, and isn't it just so tragic when you say no because you want to avoid disappointing the person? So you get that little feeling of good, but for the rest of the time when it's time to fulfill that commitment, you do not feel good at all. Okay. The last time you felt good was when you said yes. After that, it's regret, regret, regret. Why did I say yes? Why did I say I shouldn't have said yes? I hate that I said yes. So I'm going to
I
talk
don't
to you about what's that, sis?
I must not be like the by the like the majority of the population. You're learning too much about me today. I have no problem saying no. And it's my husband, on the other hand, has a very difficult time saying no. And so yeah. So that's why God put us together. Like I'm no and he's yes.
Well, now you can teach him. Now you can teach him about
In the
the beautiful love.
24 years, almost 25 years we've been together, I've been teaching him. He's gotten a little bit better, but sometimes he'll just be like, "Can you tell them no for me?" Because
Oh
it doesn't
wow.
bother you. Yeah. So, anyways, sometimes he can say no now better, but it was very difficult for him in the beginning.
A,
Yeah. And I
a,
mean, I
pa-
do care about people's feelings, but I never, this is just my mindset. It's always been this way. Like,
a
I just,
pastoral family will not survive if you can't say no. If you can't set boundaries,
exactly. We
you
would
will
have
not survive.
never survived.
You
Oh
will
my
not.
word.
And
Oh,
with the
Jesus.
quality of the teaching that he provides, he has to make time
But
to create that kind of quality.
he never wants people to feel bad. And I don't want people to feel bad either, but I don't want me to feel bad either. And so
Well,
and I've never wanted to overextend the kids and the family and stuff like that. So like
and and
yeah.
and as part of the congregation that benefits from his teaching, we want you to say no. We want you to do what you need to do in order to position yourself to deliver that, which includes having a happy family.
Yes.
So the boundaries are very, very important. We don't want
Boundaries are
relationships.
important.
We don't want relationships falling apart. We don't want children hating the ministry. So these boundaries are important. Well,
Yeah.
so how do you set? So what are some of the steps so that you can actually implement the beautiful note in partnership with your mental health team? Again, we're not making official recommendations.
Yeah. No, we're
So
not.
step
No,
one,
we're not.
step one. So the person comes to you and it's Atonte, can you please do this presentation for us? Okay. And so obviously Sister Atonte is good at this, but let's pretend she was struggling
Yeah, let's
and was
pretend.
like, my goodness, I really feel overwhelmed and there's not one more thing I want to add to my plate. Rather than saying even no right off the bat, what I would say is, hey, get more information. Hey, tell me more about that talk. Tell me more
Right.
about what you're asking. And you're trying to get all the details. Why do you want me to do it? How long is it going to be? Is
Mhm.
there compensation? I want to get all the details about what you're asking me. So
Mm.
folk at home, get all the details. One thing what we don't necessarily want you to do is say yes right off the bat. If you have to say
Right.
no right off the bat, that's almost better. But for sure, don't say yes right off the bat. What do
As
you? What do you
Christians,
think?
as Christians, we get away with, well, let me pray about it first, and
Ah,
then
you you're giving them all the tips today.
and then you'll come back and be like, well, no, I mean, I don't want you to don't be dishonest. But if you feel like God is not telling you to do it, and you know that you can't do it, then,
Family,
but don't just
family,
put it on God, and he didn't give you that impression, and it's just you. Be honest.
family. I don't know what happens when Sister Atonte is away for a while, but my goodness. But yeah, people
I know
do.
I'm being very transparent today,
No,
but
but I think these tips are yeah, it's important to know that. And yeah, people do say it from time to time. Hey, let me pray about it. Only thing that Sister Tante is saying is, and really pray about it. And
yeah,
really
really
pray
pray
about
about
it.
it.
And really pray about it. But the idea is don't do the reflexive yes. Okay? We're saying no. Pause for a second and say, tell me more about that. Get more information. Okay? Get more
Mm-hmm.
information. Then, after you've collected all the information, now you say yes, right? Wrong. Okay. Okay. Now I need to think about this. Some
Right.
of you might say pray, but no, I actually need to think about this. I need to take this
Mm-hmm.
through my process because, after all, this is important, right? And they have to
Right.
agree with that. It's important. So,
Right.
yeah, let me think through this. Okay. So then you're going to go home and you're going to get feedback from your social network. If you're married,
Mm-hmm.
honey, do you feel like I have time to do this? Do you feel like I have one more thing to add? Are we
Right.
really spending enough time together? You can
Mm.
talk to your kids. Hey, you guys feel like I'm doing, like I got time to do one more thing? You're okay if mommy's
Right.
attention goes to this or that, the other thing? And one thing I'd like you to do is also I want you to get into the head of those toddlers or the infants that can't necessarily answer the question. Are they
Mm-hmm.
really and truly giving you permission to go do that? Are they really doing that? Or would they say, no, mommy, I want more time with you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of thought process I'm encouraging you to go through. And you take it through that process. And then your spouse may very well say, or your partner or what have you, may very well say, um, well, let's get more information because are they saying it has to be on Tuesday or can it be on Wednesday or blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. So now
Mm-hmm.
new questions may emerge. And now you can take it back to that person and be like, hey, I was just wondering, could it be on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or this or that or blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with the Tante. You can take it to your prayer closet also. You can take it to the Lord in prayer,
Of course. Mm-hmm.
and pray about it. And you get
Mm-hmm.
all of that because you didn't just knee jerk say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
You can pause.
Like
Um,
somebody said in the comment, yes is the easy way, but
well,
it's the
before we
easy
finish,
way, but you're not necessarily you're not being true to yourself. You're not doing really what you want to do, and you're not taking this time to be thoughtful, like Dr. White was saying. Go ahead.
yeah. So you take it through this process, then you can go back to the person, you collect more information, you go back, you think, you pray. Now you can go back to the person now and say, you know what? I've thought about it. I've
Mm-hmm.
looked at my schedule. And at this time, I'm not in the position to give this the attention it absolutely deserves. Okay.
Right.
I'm not in a position to do that. Um, and be quiet. Okay. You leave it there. Don't save yourself and then just surrender yourself. But I'm gonna go find you the person who is. No, 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 no. Be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Be quiet. You don't surrender all your gains because you
Mm-hmm.
have to add one more thing. And the other thing is you might even verbalize it as I'm gonna have to choose at this time, or I'm choosing at this time X, Y, or Z. Because
Right.
what you're doing at that point is you're shutting down them saying, no, no, you can do it, blah, 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 by doing X, Y, or Z. It's like I'm not even inviting you into that space. I'm
Mm.
saying I've done my determination and this is what I'm doing. Okay, so now they're getting forceful, which of course now you're really coming up against my boundaries. So,
Mm-hmm.
but you've made it clear to them, I honor, I respect what you're offering. I
Mm-hmm.
understand it, and I've done the assessment and determined that this is not right for me at this time. Period.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Right. I was
Now,
going. Oh, go ahead. Was
Well, I
it?
was
I
going
thought
to
you
say
were.
that that's the beautiful no. But what if you're going to say yes? Well, the yes should be ugly. Okay? So the beautiful no, but then there's the ugly yes. And of course we're being facetious. We're not wanting you to be
Mhm.
ugly. But even if you're going to say yes, it should go through the same process. And this process will equip you with being able to then say, "Hey, you know what? If I am going to say yes, well, these are the resources that I would need." So whether it's compensation, or I need some physical materials, or I need additional time, or I need these parameters so that I can deliver it at the quality that you need. But the yes, you should outline the parameters that you're going to need that are going to equip and position you to do it at the level that it deserves to be done at. So there's a
Mhm.
beautiful no, but then there's an ugly yes. What are your thoughts, sis?
I was gonna take one of these questions or comments that people are putting in the chat. I agree with everything you just said. But Clint says, at times you feel selfish for saying no. And that's like a whole nother topic.
But
It's a whole nother
but
program because some people are people pleasers. They have a very difficult time saying no. And to the point where they actually injure themselves in a way where they're not being again true to themselves and doing really, they're not being transparent or honest really, because you're not really doing what you want to do, but you're doing what the other person wants you to do. And sometimes there's a place for that, but when it becomes where you're constantly doing that, you're never being true to yourself. Go ahead.
well, but that's why we started the discussion by saying the last time you feel good saying yes is that
Mm-hmm.
little twinge of a moment, right? And then for
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the time, every time you think about that thing, you feel bad about it. So if you're going to go by the feelings, I still, again, we're saying, yeah, pay attention to the feelings. There's no way
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense to say, okay, well, I'll avoid feeling bad for this little moment, but then I'm going to feel bad for this giant moment. But then I agree with sis that sometimes there's some therapy work that you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
to uncover, okay, why am I saying yes? Is
Right.
it because I really care about the person? Is it because I
Mm-hmm.
think this is the right activity for me to do at this time? Or is it because I have fears of being valued, or fears of being wanted, or fears, just fear? Is it fear that's
Mm-hmm.
leading me to do this? In which case, obviously, perfect love casteth out fear.
Right.
And we shouldn't be operating based on fears. So it's worth doing some work so that your no's can be no's and your yeses can be yeses, and it's not you being bullied. Okay. What we're talking about is don't let your emotions bully you into saying yes when you meant to say no, or no when you meant to say yes.
Right. There was another question here. Oh, okay. For Deborah. It says, how can you make your no assertive and beautiful and the same time? Um, do tone? I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure. Tone down and play a major, or do tone play a major factor? So that's
Yeah,
what.
Deborah, I think that is the power of this process. The reality is people don't want you to be dismissive. People don't want you to be dismissive. So if I ask Sister Tante to do something and she, without any thought, just says no, I feel dismissed. I feel dismissed. But on the other hand, if she takes the time to go through her process and get clear in her thinking why doing it at that time is not going to work for her, then I feel like, well, at least she took the time to think about it. And she definitely has legitimate reasons why she can't do it. Whether I believe they're legitimate or not, the bottom line is at least she took the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's what's important. So the process can empower you with the confidence that, you know what, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever for me to do this at this time. Um,
Right.
and again, I hope that you see throughout this episode, the overriding theme has been reflecting, contemplating,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what resources you have, and deploying them intentionally. strategically, and not just having people take all your resources, or you giving away your resources before you've considered how it is that they should be deployed, how they should be utilized, and how they should be protected. So the assertiveness, Deborah, is going to come from that feeling that you have that you've taken it through a process that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Slavika Spasova asked the question, what about boundaries in forgiveness? Is it forgiven if you say no to that person and set boundaries, or to forgive means no boundaries?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, sorry,
no,
jumping
no,
in
no.
there, but
After you, after you.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, no, you can definitely you can forgive and set boundaries. To forget, like to have, if you have boundaries, it doesn't mean that you haven't forgiven them. You've forgiven them, but the action has shown that it's it's very that you need to set some boundaries to hopefully prevent whatever happened to not happen again. I mean, it's their choice of what they do, but you're setting boundaries for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. It doesn't mean you haven't forgiven somebody, and when you forgive somebody, that doesn't mean that you don't put any boundaries there to make it represent that you have forgiven them.
Yeah, that was an interesting question. Well said, sis.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, if I set a boundary, does that mean I didn't truly forgive the person?
Mm-hmm.
And it's your heart, and it is definitely your job to protect it. It
Right.
is your heart, and it's interesting because there is literally a rib cage. Like, our heart is literally protected by
By the
bones.
yes.
Yeah, it's literally protected. Why? Because it's the heart. So it's
It's
the
the heart.
heart.
I like that. I never used that
So
analogy before, but I like that.
so
You're right.
so there are literally boundaries around your heart, and that would almost
Mm-hmm.
clue you in that you should definitely protect your heart, which is really your mind. It's really your
Right.
mind that gets hurt. And so you
Mm-hmm.
should definitely have those boundaries in place. And yeah, if a person has hurt you, it is definitely appropriate to have some boundaries in
That's
place.
right.
And it's interesting because when people have sincere love for you, they're relatively comfortable with boundaries, especially reasonable boundaries. But
Right.
they're like, when if people, especially like you're dating, you're courting or whatever, people are very interested. Hey, what are your boundaries? Like, that's the first
Right.
thing. What are your boundaries? Because I don't want to violate your boundaries. And boundaries should also have
That means,
consequences.
yeah,
Yeah.
that means that person respects you a great deal.
Absolutely. And they
Mhm.
want to respect you.
And
So,
if
well,
somebody has hurt you and they sincerely don't want to hurt you again, they will also respect that you have these boundaries.
they should be very interested in,
Hmm.
hey, what are the boundaries? And in fact, what what is your requirement to rebuild trust? What do you need to see in order to rebuild trust? So
Hmm.
super, super powerful boundaries. So
Super.
obviously you can see that we can just stay here in
I know.
discussing boundaries for a long time.
I feel like that's its own program. There's two or three
Definitely.
questions that have come out that are their own programs, and thank you because you're giving us program ideas for future. But
Absolutely.
we haven't covered tip number
Tip number
5.
5. Let's go to tip number 5, and that is keep up healthy habits. Now, remember, we're talking about creating emotional energy. And so you'll see with each tip, you're really structuring things. You're realistic so that you don't exhaust your emotional energy. You're setting your budget so, again, you don't exhaust your emotional energy, because it doesn't feel good to say, okay, I'm gonna have to work, 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 blah, blah, blah. You set boundaries around your budget. Tip number 3 is acknowledge your feelings. As Sister Tante mentioned, hey, you know what, I realize now that I lost my dad. This was a painful period, and I feel like he died alone.
Mhm.
And I will say to you, Sister Tante, um, but he had the memories with he had you guys' memories. You were with him.
Mhm.
Nothing can separate that. Nothing can
Right.
separate that. And that's
Mhm.
the power of memories. And then Sister Tante could also balance and say, and you know what? As people have been taken away, there have been people that have also been added.
Mhm.
and so I can balance, I can balance my reflection during this time frame. But acknowledging your feelings. Tip number 4 is setting boundaries. Okay. If you're going to preserve your energy, you have to set boundaries. I know when it gets really stressful and I see the plate really heavy, I know to calm down and I know to really conserve energy. Conserve energy.
Right.
So you set boundaries. We talked about the beautiful no and the ugly yes. And then now, tip number 5. Was there something you wanted to jump in with
No, no,
before I?
no.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So
Yeah, go
tip
ahead.
number 5 is keep up healthy habits. Keep up
Yes.
healthy habits. So a lot of times people see the holidays as the time to surrender the healthy. Oh, I'm gonna go all out, or I'm gonna do this, and
Right.
it's a fantastic idea to say, you know what, uh, we have a lot to be thankful for. This body, I'm thankful for this body. I'm going to do something good for this body during this period.
Mhm.
Guys, let's go for a walk.
I
It's important. We already talked about how there is a dipping of the mood, and you want to know that
Mhm.
alcohol is actually a depressant, so
Right.
that yeah, it's imagine consuming alcohol and that magnifying the depression.
Mhm.
So it's worth thinking about those kinds of things during the holiday season. What were you going to say, sis?
I was going to say you're exactly right. I mean that this is for some reason we do think the holiday season is the time to if we have healthy eating habits, we believe like this is the time where I can let that go. This is the time where I don't have to exercise every day. And that helps you deal with your stress, even maybe your sleep habits, just staying up at later times and not getting your proper sleep routine in. That will help keep your emotions, your negative emotions and stress at a low level. And so it is very important to continue to do the healthy things through this season when things can kind of cause you to not want to do those things. Definitely fight
Absolutely.
against that.
Absolutely. Sis, I can remember sitting at my mom's table, right? Especially like for
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving or whatever. We're talking about like a good 12, 13, 15 different entrees, and it's like, and you set out these, like, talk about not being realistic. You're like, we're going to try all of them. And for some reason, this holiday season, somehow, for some reason, the celebration is to pack all 2 liters of the stomach. And for some reason, this is a celebration. And then, of course, you drink and you just sit there and you can barely move. And this is celebratory. This is not celebratory.
To injure yourself through food. It's
Yeah,
celebratory to injure
how is this
yourself.
the body that's gotten me all through this year, this is the experience I'm going to subject it to. And so I was like, not this year, not this year. No, we're going to
I
have
have
a, go ahead.
yeah. No, go. I was just gonna say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say, I look at my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. It's a blessing to me because I mean, it has been a blessing in many ways. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's been a blessing because it keeps me from doing things like that. It doesn't it doesn't allow me to do things like that. Because I'm gluten free. So what's on the table in holiday season is like I have this limited
Right, yeah.
amount of food that I can choose from. And so it's, yeah, it forces me to be good.
Right.
It
And
forces me.
your stomach probably loves you for it. Like, thank
Yeah,
you for
it
this
does.
good treatment. Like, it's celebratory.
Hmm.
And so I just mean, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I played like a child, I did childish
Hmm.
things. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. It's like at some point we have to say, you know what, that was okay for then, but
Yeah.
it's okay to make changes. And I felt great. I felt great. You could interact with the family, and I didn't feel like
Right.
there was like a dumbbell sitting in my abdomen, So, I mean,
Yes.
it's like, give me a break.
Your
Well,
digestive system said thank you.
exactly. And it was like, no, we really do. We can enjoy the day. We can. So it
Hmm.
was cool. So I
Yes.
really enjoyed that. So
Yes.
look, I hope these 5 tips were helpful to you guys. I hope you
Many
see
people
that.
say they were. Many people said this was truly a blessing for them. So praise God.
Oh, awesome. I hope you see that
Mhm.
we're not in the clickbait. If we say we're going to help you create emotional energy, we really are going to try to get you some tips to create some
Right.
emotional energy.
Right.
Um,
I think
so
you want to give your website one more time where they
thank you
can
so much for
download this.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
you can go to killingburnout.com. So it's just like it sounds, killingburnout.com. And you can download this tip sheet. You'll see that we have some really nice graphics with it. We outline the discussion really nicely. And it's killingburnout.com. You got to obviously put a real email in there so that we can send it over to you. But yeah, we'd love for you to enjoy this holiday season, and we want you to create energy. We don't want you burnt out, and the goal is that we celebrate the real reason for the season. That's really our goal.
Right.
Um,
Can you hear me? Can you still hear
we
me?
can't see you. We can't see you. It
You
like
can't see
your
me. Yeah,
your
I
square is
think.
black. Your square is black.
Yeah, and that's okay because we're about to say goodbye, and because I
Okay.
think my battery on the camera died. I think that's
Oh
what happened.
no.
Actually I'm not actually sure, but because we're about to say goodbye, we just won't worry about it, and at least you can hear me.
At least we
And
hear your lovely voice.
and so yeah, I just want to say to thank everyone for viewing today. Please share this program on your social media because this is the time of year. I mean, this is beneficial even when it's the tips that we're given are beneficial regardless. And especially you can share the killingburnout.com with your family and friends because all the things that they will learn and you will learn from there are just beneficial throughout the year. And so we just want to thank you again for viewing and watching and to share this program with your family and friends. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same YouTube channel or Facebook live channel. Hopefully you can still hear me, but
No, you're
uh,
good. Yeah,
all
it's really
right.
good.
So
Take
yes,
care, guys.
yes, take care. Thank you, Dr. Whyte. See you guys
Always a
next
pleasure,
week.
sis. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye-bye.